You're enjoying being outside. Maggie was in a serious accident, car accident, and had to be confined to the house for about 5 weeks. But she's out, she's on patrol, she's doing much better. This bed that I'm standing in here, this was the last of the no-dig beds that we put in the upper part of this garden. And it runs alongside the hedgerow here, which has grown quite a bit in the last couple of years. Now, it was the last bed to go in, and it's now actually the last bed that I'm really paying attention to. And last year it became quite overgrown. And this year that trend continued, and I've just now sorted it out. Over the past couple of days, I've spent a few hours, maybe more than a few hours, clearing this bed. And what that entailed was pulling out weeds by hand and then using my fork to loosen the soil and then pull up the roots. And there were lots of different weeds in here: creeping buttercup, dock, nettles, wild garlic. That's just touching the surface. And that's what happens when you neglect a garden or a bed for more than a few months. But now that it's cleared, it's time to plant it up. And I've got some soft fruit to put in, and I'm going to mulch the surface. And then later I've got some plants to propagate, because I've got some big plans for one of the larger beds down in the lower part of the garden. I have 3 mature berry bushes to put in here, and let me just show you what I got. The first one is a red currant. It's a tart berry, and you can use it to make some really nice preserves that you can use for both sweet and savory food. And I had red currants at the allotment, but I didn't bring one with, or any cuttings. So I've got one of those. Next to it is a honeyberry, and these are absolutely delicious berries. I have one other plant over on the other side of the garden, but I've heard that if you have 2, that you'll have better harvests. They are supposed to be self-fertile, but having 2 does help. And I got this one 50% off because it's looking a little bit knackered. And then the last one that I bought is another blueberry. This one's Blue Crop, a good producer. And I do have 2 blueberries down here at the bottom. I had 3, but the third one just wasn't doing well. So I've replaced it here with a salvia. And so we've got blueberry, honeyberry, and red currant to get in. Most of the shrubs and soft fruit, the hedging that I've put in the garden, it has come here as bare root plants. But if you want immediate impact in the middle of the growing year, you can plant potted plants. They are more expensive, but as long as the soil isn't frozen, you can plant them at any point in the year. And so that's what I've done with these 3 that I bought locally. They are now in the soil, so I just planted them up to the same level they were growing in the pots. And then what I've done is I've spread this rich, dark, homemade compost all over the surface of the soil. This came straight out of my dead hedge pellet composting area. It's garden waste and kitchen waste that I pile up and leave for a year, turn once, maybe twice if it's lucky, and then this is what it becomes. And what this is going to do is it is going to stifle any of the seeds that were in the soil from being able to grow. So it's going to stop a lot of those weed seeds. It's also going to lock moisture into the soil, and it's also going to feed it because this is really nutrient rich. Compost is the mulch of choice in my climate, so a really mild climate. But if you live someplace that is really hot, really dry, it's better to put compost on the surface of the soil first, and then another material like straw or wood chips, and that will stop the compost from drying out. Right, this is all done. I'm going to give it a water, just these 3 plants that I've put in, and then I'm just going to let it carry on and grow. Let's have a little wander up to the top part of the garden. I want to show you what's growing and also have a look at the wildflower bank. We've had a bumper harvest of strawberries this year. I've made 10 pints of strawberry jam from this patch, and we've had plenty to eat fresh as well. Now I've taken the netting off. So I pulled the butterfly netting off, took the hoops off, and I've kind of just left it open, despite the fact that there are some strawberries still in here. There's not many though, and if Josie or wildlife want to help themselves, that's fine. But what I need to do next is remove all of the runners, tidy up this bed, and basically get it ready for next year. So I will be putting some more compost in here as a mulch, taking out the weeds, and then waiting for next year's harvest. The garden looks beautiful to me, but it doesn't look like July. The growth is just not there. And I don't know about you, but the weather here has been gray. It has been quite dull, not enough sunlight. The temperatures haven't been particularly warm, and we've not been getting that much rain. It's spitting right now, but not enough to really get the soil moist, which is why I have been taking to using the sprinkler out here, which I don't like doing. I've also had a lot of challenges with certain crops, especially summer loving and heat loving crops. Down here at the end of the food bed, you can see a zucchini. This time of the year, I could expect this to be at least 3 times the size, giving me loads and loads of squash, but look at how sad and pathetic it is. I had a second one, which I've moved inside the Polycrub, and I'm hoping that it will perk up and give us a little bit of a harvest at least. Other things going on in the food bed, lots of borage, carrots. I've just harvested some spinach from here. Salad onions look great too. Let's pull one of these. So these are like gigantic spring onions. So you get a little bit of an oniony bulb that you can chop up, and then you can use the greens as well. It's also been a really good year for broad beans, and there are absolutely tons in this top bed, which I need to get picking, blanch, freeze, and then put them down for winter. I've done that before, and it's so nice taking out a bag of broad beans in the winter to add to dishes, and just be grateful for the harvest that we are getting. Look at these. Wow. I am so taken with the flowers in the garden this year, especially the wildflower bank, that I've decided to do something that I have not done in about 15 years. I want to break out my watercolors and be inspired by these flowers and create some artwork. Which brings me to the sponsor of this video, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community for creatives. Think of it as a place where you can go from the comfort of home to learn any creative skill. It offers thousands of classes and learning paths on topics such as flower arranging, creative writing, photography, illustration, gardening, journaling, and so much more. To find a watercolor class, all I did was search on Skillshare and tons of different options came up. I chose a beginner-friendly class in the end, taught by a successful artist who lives in Mexico. And she went through the basics of watercolor, the tools, the paints, the paper, techniques, and then showed how to draw and paint flowers and leaves with a modern twist. Instead of painting the 4 examples in the class, I drew and painted flowers from the garden. It was a really enjoyable couple of hours, and I can't wait to paint something else. Aside from all of the other classes, there's also a learning path called Next Level Watercolors that I'm interested in doing next. I am so excited by all of the summer learning that Skillshare has to offer that I'd like to offer you, a Lovely Greens friend, a free gift. The first 500 people to use my link will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare Premium. There's a link up on the screen and also down in the video text description. The flowers down here in this part of the garden are looking amazing as well. Oxeye daisies have taken over. There's verbena in here, there's foxgloves, and the only thing we're really missing are the pollinators. I've not seen hardly any butterflies this year. Have you been seeing very many in your garden? Because I feel like it's not just me. I feel like a lot of people are seeing a lot less butterflies and bees and other types of insects. This bed here is where I had the elephant garlic, I've dug it up, and I've replaced it with leeks. And I can get away with not crop rotating because of no dig gardening. Perennial crops have been doing so much better than the annuals this year. This is fennel, and then beyond it, this is Korean mint with the purple flowers. And then this beast over here, Tontondine kale, nothing is going to stop it. I've also let the perennial leeks go to seed, and I'm going to be collecting the little bulbils when they form so that I have a bit more, and also I'm going to give them away at next year's seed swap. Other perennials like the trees, I'm grateful for. They've not really been producing much fruit, but they're here, they're creating structure, and they do have at least some fruit. The lower garden is newer than the upper garden, and I'm finding it increasingly difficult to manage all of this garden on my own. And so I have some big plans for down here. Perennials, as I just said, are easy, they're low maintenance, you can rely on a crop. And so this bed here, where I've been growing cauliflower and broccoli and potatoes, this is going to be where I put in a lot more perennials next year. But first, let's have a quick look at this broccoli. Look at that. Lovely dinner there. As I was saying, perennials down here. We've got already some blackberries here on the blackberry trellis. Comfrey is growing in well. So beyond it, this is where I'm going to put a lot more perennial crops. It'll be berries, it'll be perennial vegetables. It will be relatively low maintenance. The raspberries on the other side are perennial. They have struggled this year. Look at this. Last year, this was completely filled with berries and plants. Most of them have died off, I think because it's so dry. So I'm going to be doing a lot of transplanting of these side shoots in the winter. This bed over here has an awesome row of asparagus on the far side. I've also got some different brassicas in here, celeriac, New Zealand yam. But this is where I'm going to be growing lavender. It will be perennial flowers that I can use for cooking, sure, but also for handmade skincare. And they're going to be such a benefit to my bees, which are down there. They love lavender, and it's just a really beautiful way to fill a space. And so now I'm thinking, how can I get lots of lavender inexpensively? Earlier this year, I succumbed to an online deal that I spotted at a well-known UK seed company, and it was on sale for £15. And I was like, well, they must be small, but I didn't realize how small until they actually arrived in the post. They were obviously lavender seeds that had been sprouted in the most tiny little cells. Well, I think a lot of people must order that and be a little bit disappointed, but what I did is I knew that those plants wouldn't grow very well all jammed in there together. So I took some scissors and my fingernails and I pulled out all but the strongest plant, and then I potted them on into slightly larger cells, and then I've potted them on again into these even larger cells, and these are not that big. So you can imagine how tiny those original little cells were. I've got all of these. This is lavender head coat, and then down here I've got head coat and Munstead. All English lavenders, true English lavenders. And they've put on some size, they're doing okay. Some of them haven't made it, and I expect some of these probably won't survive until next year. But if they do, these are going to be the plants that I plant out into that bed down at the bottom of the garden. Growing lavender from seed is economical, but it takes a long time. It takes so much time that oftentimes by the end of the process, most of the plants can die, unfortunately. It just depends on how much time and effort you're able to give them in those early stages. But if you have an established lavender plant, whether it's in your garden or a friend's garden, you can take cuttings and root them into individual new plants. And it's much quicker, the plants can be much stronger from the get-go, and that's a great way to increase your plants for practically nothing. I've just been out in the garden and I've taken some lavender cuttings and some rosemary cuttings. And the lavender, the variety is called Munstead. It's a beautiful English lavender. And the rosemary is called Miss Jessop's. And I took these off my last remaining rosemary plant. And I want to do that because I want to ensure that I have rosemary for next year. And both of these will root really easily. So 4 to 6 weeks from these cuttings that are not flowering. You can try to propagate pieces of lavender and rosemary that are flowering, but they're not going to root as quickly or as easily. And the longer they are in the potting mix, sitting there, the higher the chance that they could develop rot or some sort of issue. So you want to pick nice, healthy, long as possible cuttings that don't have flowers so that they'll root easily, and then you can pot them on again after, 4 to 6 weeks. I'm going to set the rosemary aside just for now, and I'm going to focus on this lavender. I would say that most of them are about 6 inches long. I took them as long as possible, but some of them are a little bit shorter. I wouldn't really go for cuttings that were any less than about 4 inches long. And over here, I have mixed together a free draining potting mix. And I've used vermiculite in the past, I've used perlite, I've used grit. Today I'm using just a mix of 50% sand and 50% multi-purpose potting mix. The point of the potting mix is really just to allow free drainage. You don't want boggy potting mix. And so you can use whatever material you have on hand to create that environment. So I've got these pots. It's kind of best to use terracotta, but plastic works just fine, I've found through the years. And I'm just going to fill it with this mix. This is ready to go almost. What I am going to do now is I'm just going to use stick and just create little holes at each corner. With that pot ready to go, it's time to get our cuttings sorted. So I've taken these cuttings and the end looks pretty dry anyway. So what I'm going to do is I am going to find a leaf node, which is just where leaves come out of the side of the stem. And I'm going to make a cut underneath one of them. It's just there. And then I'm going to strip half the leaves off of this cutting just by running my fingers along the stem downwards. And that is a decent lavender cutting. Might even take a couple more leaves off. It doesn't need all of these leaves. And then what I'm going to do is just put it in one of these corners that I've already made holes and firm it in. And then what I'm going to do next is fill these other corners with 3 more cuttings, water this in really well, and then put a plastic bag over the top, and that will ensure that there's nice humidity inside there, and that will help facilitate rooting. And I'll tie that onto the side of the pot with a string. You do the rosemary cuttings in the exact same way. And I have the lavender, the first lavender I did here, and the rosemary here. And I've got a few more lavender cuttings to go. And then when I'm all done, I'm going to put these in a place that's warm, but out of direct sunlight. And then it's just a waiting game. 4 to 6 weeks, generally speaking, and you will start to see roots coming out of the drainage holes on the bottom of the pot. And then when you spot those little white roots, you take these cuttings, you split them up into individual plants, and then you pot them on into their own pots with just multi-purpose potting mix. With the cuttings all snug in their little bags, let's have a look at the rest of the polycrub. There are some seedlings in here. They're mainly cauliflower and cabbage. So basically brassicas that we can harvest in the autumn and winter. I'm going to be sowing quite a few more seeds though very soon. The rest of the polycrub is filled with more mature plants. Everything from the sweet potatoes that I'm growing vertically over here on the left, to tomatoes. There's a cherry variety here in front, and then the more beefsteak salad tomatoes are over here on the right hand side. Loads and loads of green tomatoes. I've yet to get a ripe one just yet. In the middle bed are the melons and cucumbers. And as they grow up, I'm just winding the stems around the string so that they can make use out of the vertical space in here. This monster down here at the end, that is a chocha, and this is the first time I've grown them undercover. They're doing very well. The very first of them is now out. It looks really spiky and painful, but the spikes on the fruit here, they're actually really soft. They're kind of rubbery feeling. And this is a quite easy to grow crop. It tastes a little bit like a mixture between a cucumber and a green pepper, like a sweet pepper. This one here is another type called a fat baby. No fruits on it just yet, but I'm sure they'll be here soon. It's averaging about 30 Celsius in here, which is I think about 85 Fahrenheit. And the plants are doing so much better in here compared to outdoors, where it's actually getting quite cold at night. Temperatures aren't really much above 15 Celsius in the day. We've got some sweet peppers over here. Let's pull that flower off of it so it doesn't deform as it grows. More over here. And as those fruits are developing, this plant needs support. So I'm going to put in a bamboo cane and tie it to that. The aubergines, so these eggplant here, you can see that although they don't climb really tall, these strings coming down are a good support for them so that they don't go flopping all over the place. Growing crops under cover. So here in the Polycrub and in the greenhouse, where we'll go to next, has been a lifesaver, I would say, for this year's garden, because although I'm not getting as many crops out of these scenarios just yet, there are plenty on the way. So we've got the tomatoes, we've got the eggplant, melons, cucumbers. It's all going to start happening in August and September. Opposed to out in the garden, where it's been kind of hit or miss this year. We had a really wet and cool start to the year that caused an explosion of slugs, and then the weather has been relatively dull ever since. And so aside from leafy greens and plants that have been really protected from slugs, it hasn't been that great outdoors. But where there's a little bit of extra warmth, a little bit of extra care when it comes to pests, plants have really thrived. You can really tell that the weather's been not great by the fact that we have all of our cushions covered up on our outdoor sofa. The Vegepods have been fairly productive though, and it helps that they have these covers that I can put down in case it's really windy or the plants inside need a bit more shelter. And I've just planted out some new lettuce seedlings despite Maggie's interference while I was planting. They'll perk up soon, and then we'll be able to harvest those. These large ones that are bolting, I'm going to be saving seed from them. It's a cause variety called George Richardson, which is a heritage variety. And it has been a wonderful lettuce, really dark green, crunchy leaves, which we really enjoy. And so by saving seed, I'm not only creating free seed, but also helping to keep this variety going. The side yard is looking a lot better than it did this time last year. We put down the wood chip earlier on. I have the wormery down here, which is where we compost some of our food waste. And then these two beds here are madder root, which is a natural dye plant. And then over here, I've put some sunchokes, Jerusalem artichokes, as well as the horseradish. These are vegetables that you don't really want out in your open beds as much because they can take over. So they're here constrained in this area, and they're kind of out of view as well because madder root, although it creates a beautiful natural color in textiles and soap, it's not really the most attractive plants. Let's go have a peek inside the greenhouse. You can tell that it's also been a cool summer because not only are the greenhouse doors closed, but I don't have any shade paint on the glass. Normally I paint it with a white non-toxic paint just to reduce the amount of sunlight getting in, but it has been unnecessary this year. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But look at how green and productive it is inside this space. It's a far cry from when we started a few months ago. And we have everything from this chard growing in a fabric bag to some dwarf Jerusalem artichokes here, to peas growing on this willow obelisk that I built a couple of years ago. Need to pick those. We even have melons, tomatoes, cucumbers in here. It really does show that if you have a small space like this, it doesn't matter if the weather outside is really poor, you can still grow your crops inside. What I do recommend though is that you keep on top of watering. So for example, this hanging basket of cherry tumbling tomatoes, it really does need watering every single day. The tomatoes over here, they don't need as much watering because they're in self-watering planters that I showed you how to build earlier this year. And we're starting to see the very first green fruits developing. This is the Manx Marvel, so the local variety tomato. And this one over here is called Tigerella. And I think there's one fruit that's a little bit showing of the stripes. So it has tiger stripes on it. I am incredibly grateful to have not one, but two undercover growing spaces. The greenhouse came with the house when we bought it. That was lucky. And then putting in the Polycrub here has been probably the best investment I've ever made, at least in terms of the garden. And if you don't already have an undercover growing space, I highly recommend you get one put in. You can get larger ones like mine or much smaller ones, but an undercover growing space will help you to not only extend the season, so getting seedlings started ultra early, getting ultra early harvests and late harvests, but should the weather turn abysmal like it has this summer here in the Isle of Man, you can rely on this space to grow crops, to grow flowers, and to be able to be outdoors and out of the rain. I know that they're expensive, greenhouses and polytunnels. Sometimes you can get a really good deal. Sometimes you can get them for free. I know at least here on Facebook, I see a free greenhouse pop up every month or so. People just not wanting their old greenhouse. Usually they're not in great shape, but if you can replace the glass and disassemble and reassemble, why not? But having this kind of a space will enable you to get at least a good season indoors, regardless of what's going on outside. I'm not giving up on the outside garden thus far. It's looking beautiful. The flowers have been incredible. The leafy greens have been decent. The strawberry harvest this year was fantastic. But I'm changing tactics. I'm really just kind of focusing on leafy green vegetables, alliums, crops that I know are going to battle it out through whatever weather and will give autumn and winter crops. I'm going to be sowing some Asian green vegetable seeds here shortly in the next week or so. I'll start pak choi and Chinese cabbage. The last of the carrot seeds will go in this week. And it will be mainly maintaining what I have, and the harvest will start rolling in soon, especially from in here, and then enjoying the rest of the summer. I may even break out the watercolor set again soon because that was so much fun. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and I would love to hear how your gardening season has been thus far. Has it been as wet and dull as it has been here, or has it been on the opposite spectrum and completely dry and hot? So let me know in a comment below how things have been going for you. And thanks for coming along with me today and having a look around the garden. I will see you in a couple of weeks for another video here on Lovely Greens. And until then, bye for now.